Hello my friends and welcome. Let's go to the Bakhmut area because Ukrainian army moves forward day by day. So let's go to the timeline straight away. It was yesterday and it is today. As you can see, this blue area expanded. It means that there are no more Russian soldiers. It is very important because the gray area is the fighting zone and there could be some sort of the fluctuations, but usually if it is the blue area, it stays liberated. The main thing from what I see that Ukraine finally took this hill. We have the confirmation from this military map and we have the delay in this map because the deep state map resource gives the information late on purpose, just not to warn our enemy about the Ukrainian army movement. So probably we are already somewhere in Klishivka. Klishivka, yes. The village itself, by the way, is not that important compared to the hills around. If we speak about the tactical advantage, obviously, but later on, if Ukraine wants to go to Opitne, for example, we have to take Klishivka village. Again, awesome news from the south part of the Bakhmut area. Let's go to the north, where Ukraine moved a little bit towards Berhivka. I guess just a few meters, you can see it on a timeline. Here it's harder for our army because this hill is still controlled by the Russian forces and they use this terrain advantage to resist against the Ukrainian army movement. So the south part, I would say, more successful compared to the north, but Russia is also struggling on the north as well. Speaking about the future battle for Yahidne and in the north part of the Bakhmut, it would be and could be slower compared to the south because the fighting in the urban environment is way harder than the fighting on the fields. Like for example on the south, there are no any big towns. Let's say the Opitne itself, however, is the part, I would say, of the Bakhmut city. So there are some buildings, but first of all our guys need to reach it and then continue the fighting, or to stay here in this area and continue movement eastbound trying to encircle the Bakhmut city. Speaking about the Russian defense lines, they put one over here near to Yahidne. Those are not all of the trenches that Russia uses in this area. For sure they have many of the trenches on the front lines, but here are the most significant ones. What we also may do on the north is to move towards Krasnoye Hora, not to concentrate on the Bakhmut itself. We may take Krasnoye Hora and by doing so we also may cut supply line for the Russian army in all of this area. I guess it could be the plan of Ukrainian army. By doing so, we may encircle this hump that Russia has now on the northwest part. I do not exclude that Ukrainian forces may advance from other positions, from Vesela, for example, just to deflect the attention of the Russian forces, or here towards the Solidar. If we zoom out from Bakhmut, you can see that Russia built a significant defense line, so we don't have chances to penetrate those without using the aviation. Also on the south they are quite similar. Not far away from Vuhledar you may see that there is just a single defense line, or maybe there are two of the defense lines with lots of the dots and trenches. So yes, it is quite significant resistance that Russia was able to construct. So we're quite late, I may say, with the Ukrainian counteroffensive operation. That's why it goes slowly and slower than expected. But there is something that our Western allies may send to Ukraine to continue this operation with a new brass, and I'm not speaking about the airplanes. Let's watch the latest news. We are speaking about the ATACMS long-range missile system. According to the Wall Street Journal article that I read today, the deal was approved to supply those rockets to Ukraine. Just one signature left. President Biden should sign this deal. I'm sure that he will do it. United States has the project of the budget for the next year, including those rockets, as the transfer to Ukrainian army, and this is the deal breaker in the current counteroffensive operation of Ukrainian army. The point is that we need those rockets not the next year, but today. Without those, it's very hard to cut the Russian supplies in the region. Moreover, as you can see, that there is the type of the cluster munition that could be used for this rocket. According to the different article, the United States of America will approve the cluster munition supplyment for Ukraine the next week. I already published this information on my Telegram channel. By the way, you might find it in the video description just below. Subscribe for my Telegram. It is for free. You may also comment there. You may share pictures. You may react with with emojis, and you may get the latest information that I upload there regularly. So there's the convention that many of the countries signed not to share the cluster munitions and not to use them during the war. However, Russia, United States and Ukraine haven't signed that agreement. Moreover, Russia has already used the cluster munition during this conflict. They even bombed the residential buildings of civilians using that munition. It was well documented and it is the known fact. Here, Ukraine will not use it against the civilian infrastructure. We need to break through the minefields. We need to break through the Russian defense lines. So those will be used just for that purpose. The Human Rights Watch organization said that the delivery of the cluster munition to Ukraine may cause the suffering of civilians. So for this organization, it seems like Ukrainian civilians are not suffering right now. We need to end it, and cluster munition will help to break through the Russian defense lines and will take the ground, will liberate our territory, and we're gonna finish this war. Just the last night there was the attack on Lviv city. 7 people, 7 civilians lost their lives because of the Shahid drones. Human Rights Watch doesn't care about that. Human Rights Watch didn't care that Russia used the cluster munitions against the civilian buildings. That's why I don't trust those international organizations like independent, let's say, Human Rights Watch, United Nations that is not capable, the International Atomic Agency, Red Cross and other bullshit that do not do anything. Luckily, we have our allies who support us with weaponry. Yes, we hope for more support with airplanes, with more ATACMS rockets. We still don't have those in our army, but still, at least we have the weaponry. Glad to say that most of our allies don't give a about Human Rights Watch and other stuff. After all, why does the cluster munition considered unsafe for civilians? Because they cover vast lands with those small explosives. It is not a very precise weaponry, so if there is the town, it will cover many of the buildings and will cause destruction to infrastructure, taking many of the human lives. But if you use them on the fields, like for example, as we plan to do on the south front lines, it is much safer for civilians, but at the same time, around 1% of all of those small explosives do not explode. And that amount, 1%, may explode later, then civilians will go to the place after the war is over. But you know what? There are lots of the mines on the south front lines, they have the same effect. So as you can see, Ukraine will minimize the risk for civilians and probably will do even better job compared to the current situation. Obviously speaking about the minefields. The effect of this shell on the Russian position will be similar to the aviation bomb strike. But instead of using the big explosives and very heavy bomb, we're gonna use the small shell, relatively small, that may cover the same area with the same active range of fire as the aviation bomb. So we need those for sure. The Ukrainian Minister of Defense Reznikov called today to Lloyd Austin, the chief of Pentagon. He said that they have the projects related to supplying various types of ammunition. Stay tuned for the good news. Probably here he speaks about ATACMS and cluster munition. Great news, there was the big exchange today of the soldiers from both of the sides. Many of the Ukrainian soldiers came back to their land. It is fantastic, however, there are some other pictures that I cannot show you, showing the state of the body of the soldiers. They're really exhausted. They're very thin, they're sick, so Russia threatened our soldiers as nothing. At the same time, the Russian soldiers who were exchanged are more or less okay, as you can see, and about our soldiers, it seems like they were in some sort of the concentration camp. About the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, it's been confirmed by the satellite image that some of the objects were placed on the roof of one of the reactors. Well, it is hard to say what is there with this resolution. According to many of the resources like Oryx and Bloomberg, Ukraine now has more tanks than the Russian Federation. So the black scale shows the tanks before the war, so Russia had 3,400 tanks in use. And now they have 1,400 tanks. They lost at least 2,000 tanks. Ukraine had a little bit less than 1,000 tanks before the war, and now we have 1,500, which 100 tanks more compared to the Russian Federation. Plus we have modern tanks like Leopard 2, Challenger 2, and we'll have Abrams tanks. So this number will gradually increase. I think it's the first time in history that defending side gained the tanks in such a short term. Here we need to thank our allies and also Russian goodwill gesture tactics. Then they run away from the Kharkiv region last year. They left lots of the tanks out there. But as you can see, Russia has the superiority in heavy guns and also MLRS systems. But our rocket artillery is way more precise compared to the Russian one. And if you check every parameter, Russia is losing the resources and Ukraine gains the resources. And the war is about resources, supplies, proper ammunition, and good communication. And based on this trend, I am sure that Ukraine will win this war. The self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Lukashenko, today said that he cannot find Prigozhin. He believes that Prigozhin hasn't crossed the border with Belarus, so probably he is somewhere in Russia or in the different state. We know that Prigozhin may look like anyone with his wigs. Russia tried to get to Kiev last year. That attempt was unsuccessful for them, but still we may find some of the traces of their activity. Like, for example, this Russian tank T-72 in Kiev suburbs. As you can see, the turret was separated, as in most of the cases. Then the Russian tank is being attacked by a javelin or TOW missile. So to get it out from this private field would cost a lot for the government, and the locals say that okay, let it be over there, because they do have more land around and they're not very bothered by this tank. They got used to it. Locals evacuated, then Russians came and now returned back. Then this territory is freed from the Russian occupiers. I just hope that the rest of our country will be liberated very soon. My friends, don't forget to press the like to this video, and also if you want to support my job, there will be some of the links available in the video description just below. You may support me on Patreon, on the sponsorship of this YouTube channel, and also on the PayPal. Thank you so much for your awesome support. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.